We monitored the entire world.
You've just seen behind a curtain that you weren't even supposed to know existed. This is your plan. We're determined to keep it that way. You bumped into a woman this morning on the bus.
Were you just staring at my legs?
I was defenseless.
The Adjustment Bureau presents a world that looks familiar on the surface, but operates according to rules that are largely invisible. Set in modern-day New York, the story immediately raises a central question that runs through every scene. Do human beings truly control their own lives, or are their choices quietly shaped by forces beyond their awareness? This question is not treated as an abstract philosophical exercise, but as a living, urgent conflict that plays out through personal ambition, love, and sacrifice. The city itself becomes a symbol of order and chaos, a place where millions believe they are moving freely while unseen systems guide them toward predetermined outcomes. At the center of the narrative is David Norris, an ambitious and charismatic politician standing on the edge of a major career breakthrough. He is confident, media-savvy, and deeply invested in the idea that success comes from hard work and personal will. His run for the U.S. Senate represents more than a political milestone. It reflects his belief that life rewards those who seize opportunity and shape their own destiny. David's worldview is rooted in personal responsibility, and he assumes that his future is something he can plan, manage, and ultimately control. That assumption begins to fracture when he meets Elise Sellas, a contemporary ballet dancer whose outlook on life contrasts sharply with his own. Elise is spontaneous, intuitive, and guided more by emotion than calculation. Their meeting feels accidental, almost insignificant in the larger scheme of David's career, yet it immediately disrupts the careful structure of his life. There is an instant connection between them, one that feels genuine and unplanned. In a story so concerned with destiny and control, this chance encounter stands out as something pure, unscripted, and deeply human. As David grows more aware of his feelings for Elise, the film introduces the unsettling presence of mysterious men who seem to know far more about his life than they should. These figures move through the city with quiet authority, observing, intervening, and correcting events when necessary. They are not villains in the traditional sense, but agents of a larger system known as the Adjustment Bureau. Their purpose is not personal cruelty, but cosmic order. They exist to ensure that humanity follows a carefully designed plan, one that balances free will with predetermined outcomes. David's accidental glimpse behind the curtain changes everything. When he witnesses the Bureau at work, manipulating events and controlling outcomes with frightening efficiency, his understanding of reality collapses. The world he believed was governed by chance and choice is revealed to be managed by an organized, almost bureaucratic force. This revelation forces him into a moral and emotional crisis. If every major decision is guided, corrected, or erased, then what meaning do ambition, love, or sacrifice truly have? The Adjustment Bureau frames fate not as a mystical concept, but as an administrative system. The agents wear suits, follow rules, and file reports. Their authority comes from adherence to a higher plan rather than personal power. This portrayal makes the idea of destiny feel disturbingly practical. Fate is not an abstract force of nature, but a managed process with enforcement mechanisms. This approach gives the story a unique tone, blending science fiction with political thriller elements and grounding its philosophical questions in a recognizable reality. David's relationship with Elise becomes the focal point of his rebellion. The Bureau insists that their connection is a deviation from the plan, a relationship that, if allowed to continue, would derail both of their intended futures. David is told that Elise must be removed from his life for the greater good. Accepting this would mean returning to a path of political success, influence, and security. Rejecting it means uncertainty, risk, and the possibility of losing everything he has worked for. Elise herself represents a form of freedom that cannot be easily quantified or controlled. As a dancer, her life is built around movement, expression, and emotion rather than rigid structure. She does not seek power or status, and she resists being defined by long-term plans. Her presence challenges David's belief in control and forces him to confront the emotional cost of a life shaped entirely by ambition. Their connection suggests that some aspects of human experience cannot be reduced to data points in a cosmic design. The Bureau's interventions grow more aggressive as David refuses to let go. Doors close at precisely the wrong moments, paths shift unexpectedly, and encounters are carefully redirected. The city becomes a maze designed to separate them, with the agents manipulating time, space, and probability to enforce the plan. These sequences emphasize how small changes can have enormous consequences, reinforcing the idea that destiny operates not through dramatic miracles, but through subtle adjustments. As David learns more about the Bureau's rules and limitations, the story introduces an important tension between determinism and choice. The agents reveal that humanity was once given more freedom, but chaos and destruction led to tighter control. Over time, humans oscillated between autonomy and guidance, suggesting that free will is not an absolute right, but a conditional privilege. This history reframes the Bureau not as outright oppressors, but as caretakers attempting to prevent disaster, even if it means sacrificing individual happiness. Despite this explanation, the emotional core of the story remains firmly aligned with David's struggle. His refusal to accept a future that excludes Elise becomes an assertion of human agency. He is not trying to overthrow the system or gain power over fate itself. He simply wants the right to choose love, even if that choice leads to failure. This personal focus keeps the narrative grounded and prevents it from becoming an abstract debate detached from real emotion. The chase across New York streets, rooftops, and hidden passageways becomes a metaphor for resistance. David's physical movement through the city mirrors his psychological journey away from passive acceptance and toward active defiance. Each obstacle placed in his path reinforces the cost of choice, while each narrow escape suggests that even within a controlled system, uncertainty still exists. The story suggests that fate may be powerful, but it is not flawless. Elise's gradual awareness of the forces keeping them apart adds another layer to the narrative. Her confusion, frustration, and eventual understanding highlight the human impact of the Bureau's interventions. She is not merely a prize or motivation for David, but a fully realized individual whose own life and future are being shaped without her consent. This perspective reinforces the ethical dilemma at the heart of the story: whether a stable, orderly world justifies the suppression of personal freedom. The film's tone balances tension with introspection. Moments of suspense are interwoven with quiet reflections on choice, regret, and possibility. The dialogue frequently returns to questions of purpose and responsibility, asking whether happiness achieved through ignorance is preferable to suffering endured in pursuit of truth. David's journey suggests that awareness itself carries a cost, but also that it is essential to meaningful existence. George Nolfi's direction emphasizes clarity over spectacle, allowing the concept to unfold through character interaction, rather than overwhelming visual effects. The restrained approach keeps the focus on the moral implications of the story, ensuring that the science fiction elements serve the narrative rather than overshadow it. The city's architecture, with its grids, doors, and corridors, reinforces the theme of controlled movement and hidden structure. The influence of Philip K. Dick's original idea is evident in the story's exploration of reality, authority, and perception. As with many of his works, the question is not whether the system exists, but how individuals respond once they become aware of it. The Adjustment Bureau does not offer easy answers or absolute resolutions. Instead, it presents a world where control and freedom coexist in uneasy tension, and where every choice carries consequences that extend beyond the individual. By the time David reaches the point of final decision, the stakes are no longer limited to his political career or romantic future. His choice represents a challenge to the very logic of the plan itself. The story suggests that while systems can predict behavior, they cannot fully account for the depth of human emotion. Love, in this context, becomes an unpredictable variable, one that resists calculation and refuses to be neatly adjusted. The conclusion reinforces the film's central theme without undermining its complexity. Rather than presenting fate as an enemy to be destroyed, it reframes destiny as something that may evolve in response to human courage and conviction. The possibility that the plan can change implies that free will, when exercised with purpose and sincerity, has the power to reshape even the most rigid structures. The Adjustment Bureau ultimately functions as both a romantic thriller and a philosophical inquiry. It invites viewers to reflect on their own lives and consider how much of what they experience feels chosen versus guided. By grounding its speculative ideas in relatable characters and emotional stakes, the film transforms an abstract question into a personal one. It does not ask whether fate exists, but whether it should have the final say. Through David and Elise's struggle, the story argues that meaning arises not from guaranteed outcomes, but from the willingness to risk loss in pursuit of what feels true. In a world where unseen forces may influence every step, the act of choosing becomes an act of resistance. The film leaves audiences with the idea that destiny may shape the path, but it is human choice that gives the journey its value.